welcome back to the Bible Study Girl podcast. This is Sarita, but you probably know me as Bible Study Girl. And providing our introduction today is none other than the executive producer of this here podcast, Bible Study Brother.
Oh, it is I, Bible Study Brother, also known as Icarus Gray over at Gray Area Anime. And this is the most wonderful podcast of your day. Honeysuckle Summer out now. Go listen to the song on all your streaming platforms, from Apple Music to Spotify to Pandora and everywhere else.
You know, after I provided that rousing introduction to you and there was a long pause, I was like, hey, is my mic on? Check. Thankfully, the mic is on, and hopefully this is the most wonderful podcast of your day. Today, we're back into our blog recap bag, and we are going down memory lane and talking about the blog Colorblind. Part of our blog recap means that you get the chance to go back down memory lane with us. So you can head over to BibleStudyGirl.com, touch the magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner, and type in Colorblind so that you'll be able to read and see what we're really talking about. So first things first, Bible Study Brother is going to tell me what he thought when he had a chance to sit down and read the blog, the impressions he got, the emotions it evoked, whatever was running through his brain when he read the blog. Then I'll pop in, guys, and I'll let you know how I felt when I sat down to write the blog. And I'll let you know if my thoughts and feelings on the subject have changed since the blog was originally written. So this blog was written in 2019, October of 2019. So it was written way before George Floyd was murdered. So that's something to think about as well when you think about the subject matter. So go ahead, Bible Study Brother. I'm going to be quiet and let you take it away and tell us what you thought about the blog Colorblind.
So the blog Colorblind in and of itself was about two instances, technically, of racism that you've experienced. And the first instance was just kind of that thing that I think a lot of us younger black kids kind of go through or went through in the 90s and kind of into the 2000s, which was, so we are the non-segregated going to school kids. We're the generation that, you didn't have to, like, quote unquote fight to get into a school with white people and all this other stuff. And so there was a bit of hope and we're all friends kind of thing, that we all probably, or not all, but some of us, me personally, and from Bible Study Girls experience, also had the same thing, which is you become really good friends with people in elementary school. You are like tight, like sleepovers, baths, all of the things that you do with kids. And by the time that you're like a preteen, though, and you start to kind of like step into your culture or step into a certain uniqueness that comes from the differences in those cultures, there can be this separation that starts to happen, and you don't really understand why. Eventually it starts to make itself clear, and things start, showing themselves. But on one side of it, there isn't a lot that you end up doing to kind of evoke the separation in and of itself. And you can end up with some pains and things in that regard. The secondary part of it was she dealt with racism in her field. In speech pathology, only speech language pathologists, there's 3% of all the speech pathologists are black. 3%
are minority.
Are minority, excuse me. 3% are minority. So then again, that 3% can be even lower. And even lower in that is, a black man and males in that. It's so very small. And so being in that field, she's dealt with a lot of different situations where people aren't expecting to see a black person, because with 3%, the chances of you seeing one in this field is low. And so my thoughts on both of those juxtaposition. The first juxtaposition I think was I've been there. I've been in a position where I had a friend. Matter of fact, we used to do an interracial Sunday, and the pastor that came over, his son is the son that I was cool with. That, you know, we both nerds. We like Pokemon and cards and all this other stuff. And it was we had a birthday party at his house. I think like maybe 8th grade or something like that. And like that was like the last time that we really kicked it. And didn't say anything else. I mean, again, I didn't change. I'm still the same person. I like rap music. I listen to R&B. I still listen to all of my games, and I'm still the biggest nerd that could possibly be. But we just kind of fell apart, and it was weird. And then 9/11 happened, and it was like that time and space and time of kind of like realizing what people thought about race. And what people thought about each other was something that started to kind of like turn me into Bully's grandson. That was 9/11 was my inception.
So that was your wake up call that different races are treated
because for me at that point in time, because my sister thought I was just naive to all of this. I remember having conversations about this, and they were like, I don't know, you seem to. I was like, well, I was hopeful. I wasn't naive. I was just hopeful that I could marry somebody that was outside my race, and we could, like, you know, try something. Like it might not be the whole dent, but it'll be something. But 9/11, I remember, you know, kind of not understanding the gravity of it, because this is also a point where I'm realizing that I grow up in a neighborhood where, you know, shootings can happen sometimes, and you always hear ambulances and fire trucks and police cars and stuff like around the area, not necessarily like on our street or whatever. And so we had just had somebody like on our street. There was this house at the corner that people would rent out a lot. And a lot of times the people that rented out that house were not necessarily like the greatest people. Sometimes it seemed.
That is true. I would say the one great thing about our neighborhood is most of the people that lived on our street own their home, except for that rental house. The neighbors gonna bring the noise and the funk. Go ahead.
And so at this rental house, somewhere around that time, like somebody had been shot and died in front of that house. And I remember us all being outside. And like dealing with those first kind of things, or like there was these people riding around in this, and I'll never forget this, in this red, like Cadillac, toned out, painted truck looking thing or car, whatever. It was just a real nice car. And so me and my friends are all standing out in the front. We've been taught the black code at this point, which is you don't snitch. You just, and again at this point, like I don't know who did what, when, where.
Well,
why.
that might be the black code, but let me put a pin in your statement. That's not a Sarita code. I'm gonna tell you, don't do it in front of me, because I'm going to tell. I'm not going to jail. And not go ahead with the rest of your story. I wasn't there for what it you saw.
Well, so here's the thing. So this person drives up, and this is why I'm saying, like, I mean, just who you tell it to, and it's not. This ain't a cop. This ain't a cop that you snitching to. It's just somebody that's asking questions. I don't need to tell you nothing why you asking. So we all know, like, no, I didn't see nothing. I don't know what's going on downstairs. And a neighbor girl who stayed 2 houses down from us.
I know who you talking about.
Felt the need to be like, well, no, somebody got shot down there or something like that. And so we look and stare at her like, bro, why are you standing in front of my house saying this? If these the people and they just trying to see what's going on, because I don't know how, you know, because criminals is bold. Sometimes, like, you don't really, like, a lot of what happens in terms of crime, they ain't that far. Like, I feel like whoever did it wouldn't, somebody lived in the neighborhood is my just assumption.
Well, in that case, I thought you were saying you wasn't snitching to the police. In that case,
oh no,
I wouldn't even been out there. But go ahead.
But I mean, I would have. I mean, like that's different. But I'm just saying, like, you know, not to, like, you don't do that in between folks, or you shouldn't, to me.
So that's definitely a cultural difference, like a neighborhood difference. It depends on what neighborhood you grow up
Yeah.
in. I'm gonna let you finish.
But anyway, so this had just happened. So the reason I brought that up, this has just happened. Then 9/11 happens. And I remember thinking so vividly about the people that die in my neighborhood every day that no one cries about, no one cares about. And I was like, I don't even understand why we're crying right now. And that can seem controversial, but I'm in 8th grade. I ain't never been to New York. I don't have no people that at that point that live in New York.
Right.
Like, I'm also a minority, so I'm not even thinking of, like, I'm also trained in a certain way, which is, what did we do? Like,
Oh, so that was your thought? It was,
you
we
know,
can talk about 9/11 another day, but we have completely different perspectives on that. But
well, anyway, the summation of what I'm saying is, like, so when I was looking at that, my first thought was, people die in it every day. We ain't crying for them. And so there was like this disconnect of first, and then the way that they talked about America in a way that they had not before, and was so, and this might have been the first time I also realized that politics was a bit of a sham at this point, because every commercial was, I'm an American, oh, I'm an American, and there was a noticeable person that was missing from this I am an American campaign that you running on all these channels. And I was very upset and taken aback by, like, y'all don't like us on a good day. Like, I know this is fake. And I don't understand why nobody else notices what they're doing, which is like, this is publicized or commercialized racism against a whole group of people and their religious beliefs. And so that's kind of what that reminded me of in that first half. And in the second half, I haven't had too many instances of dealing with blatant racism outside of our Chicago trip. And there's so much going on nowadays after we've gone through the last presidency, that we've gone through the current ways the presidency of stuff is going on now. Like, all the hope I had as a young person, thinking like that Martin Luther King had happened 100 years ago in terms of how history is taught to us, and realizing, like, oh, it was just 40 years or whatever at that time. And then it was 50 years. And then, like, oh, so we're not really that far. That's my grandma's, the gap of that.
right.
That's a person I can talk to that, like, that history is not so far from me. And so it started to kind of make me look at the world differently, obviously, as I'm becoming Boo's grandson, in the sense that I just think certain things I just can't fool with. So I'm not, like, as mad, because I know that you are protected and you are a queen, and your blackness is not something that you've ever been shy about, in at least how you present yourself to me. You may have had personal moments or whatever, but I've never been like, man, I don't think my sister got that black girl magic. I'm like, no, I know she got black girl magic. Like, she's very loud and spoken about that. Like, through the lens of my sister is how, like, because when people was first doing the natural hair craze or whatever, I was just like, oh, this is wild. Why is folks doing this? Versus seeing my sister and how she, like, seeing this, like, oh, I get it. It makes sense. Like, I see, oh, that's what's up. And just kind of seeing, like, the appreciation of what it is to be black, I think has been something that spiritually is a hodgepodge of things and all together. But long story, less long, in fact, that I've said it, which makes the fact that it's not worth saying.
That is a long story. I'm doing a great job. I'll let you
You
speak.
are. So I finished on a coherent thought that isn't just a bunch of stories that just seem disconnected. My experience with a lot of this stuff was surface and had very serious points, and then I just fell into the water. And when I fell into the water, I'm no longer able to see things from just a non-problematic standpoint. Just in saying, like, even the word colorblind, if you say that, we got a problem.
Right.
We got to talk, we got a problem, or I just can't be around you. Because it means you're choosing to be blind to different things. And I know that there's understanding everywhere. There are too many examples in the world that show me people understand what's going on, to even give somebody benefit of the doubt and feel like they don't know what we talking about. So those are my thoughts. That's what that kind of brought out of me. I'm not as angry as I thought I would be because I'm trying to be better.
Right. Now, this is definitely one of those times when I did not want you to read it. Like, oh, you have to read it immediately before we start because I don't want you to have time to stew on your thoughts and get super pumped and angry. I You mentioned a couple things. One, I've always been very much aware that I'm a Black person. I've never been in question of it. So I haven't had a racial identity crisis. Like, who am I? Am I Black or white? I was very much aware of the fact that I was a Black girl. I So my best friend when I was in elementary school was white. We did everything together. I had other friends. I had Black friends and white friends as well, but my bestest friend was white. I went to a different junior high, and that's when the separation began. I spent more time, I think, I did spend more time with Black classmates than white classmates, and it wasn't an intentional thing. I think it was really just, I think it was just environment driven because the demographics changed from my elementary school to where my junior high was. It just was a different demographic. There were more white kids in my elementary school and there were more Black kids in my junior high. So the demographics just shifted. So I think that's what the big thing is. So I don't agree with being colorblind. I've never been colorblind. I'm very aware of what I look like and who I am. But I believe for me, the whole purpose of the blog and the reason I wrote the blog about color is because I've had way too many experiences in my life with Christians, with people that proclaim that they love Christ, but they have a problem with me strictly based on the color of my skin. Not anything that I've done to them, not not anything I've done to them, and not even an experience they've had with me, but their thought of who I am is strictly based off the color of my skin. I tell a story in the blog about being at work as a therapist. Joe touched on this. My field, I believe, is 3% of the 3% of speech language pathologists are minority. So that could be Black, that could be Asian, just anything that's not white. The majority of my field is white women. Men are definitely in the minority in my field. You really don't see men speech language pathologists that often. They do exist, but they're definitely not as prevalent. The industry is primarily white women. So when I'm going to talk specifically about the incident I had when I moved to Arkansas. I started my professional career in Georgia. And really my start in Georgia was like a gym. It was something that was out of the ordinary for a typical environment. I went in there and when we graduate from school, we're still not completely free. We have to do what we call a clinical fellowship year, and you have to have a supervisor. The Lord favored me and looked out for me. My clinical supervisor is a Black woman. I just told you 97% of the profession is white women. So for me to get a job in a new location and have my supervisor be a Black woman that's like a God thing. That's not a coincidence thing. not only was my supervisor a Black woman, but she's a strong Black woman that's confident and was really able to help me navigate the field. But I say my first year out of school was like a blessing and a godsend and like an anomaly, because I believe there were 4 or 5 Black speech pathologists at my job. And I was like, oh, this is not what I'm expecting. And it was a great experience to have those women there to mentor me. Now, we didn't sit down and talk about race all the time. It was not that, but it was just great to have those examples and have women that I could call later down the line when situations arose, so I could say, hey, is this typical or am I tripping? Like, am I being sensitive or is this the way it typically goes? And so then I went to Houston, which was also an anomaly. Tons of Black SOPs. I was surrounded by Black SOPs. So I had a different experience. I think the people there, so people aren't thrown off when there's a Black SOP. I think just because of I think Houston is like a chocolate city. Tons of Black people there, so you're more likely to get a Black speech therapist. I moved back home to Arkansas and the bottom fell out. I was going to be, every job I worked at, pretty much as I've been back in Arkansas, I'm it. You looking for a person of color? It's me. Like, is she a therapist or a teacher? I'm a therapist. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay, people. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. And so moving back to Arkansas was a culture shock for me. It was, and I know it was a culture shock for the clients that I was servicing, because I'm not the norm. I'm not what they're used to seeing. So I said all of that to kind of help you understand my shock when I started working in Arkansas, and I was working for a travel therapy company, like a home health therapy agency, and I had to call and schedule appointments with my clients. So I called to set up my initial appointment to treat the son, and I never get a call back. But at this point, I'm driving from house to house. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm not centrally located. So I'm working out of my car, trying to make this work. And my supervisor calls me in the office and she's like, yeah, the patient's mom called and said she wasn't able to understand you to make the appointment, but I knew that wasn't true because she called to tell me she wanted to cancel the appointment at the date and the time that you said. So she understood what you were saying. And she was like, I just want to let you know that I'm aware of what's going on, because she had let all the other therapists that the child was scheduled to receive come into her home, but she did not want me to come into her home. The clinic made the compromise. I didn't have to go to the lady's home. Now, mind you, I am a home health therapist. The reason you contacted the agency is because you want somebody to come to your home to see your child, because you don't want to bring them to the clinic. This lady would drive up to the clinic every week so that he could receive speech therapy from me, because they refused to give her a different therapist. Like, if she wanted speech therapy, she had to receive speech therapy through me. And it was only later that I discovered that every other therapy that the child received in the home. Occupational therapy was in the home. Physical therapy was in the home. He might have even received developmental therapy, but they all went to that lady's house. But she didn't want me in her house. And the only way he was going to get speech therapy through that clinic was if she brought him in, because they would not give her a new therapist. When I say, I was like, what world are we living in? And the thing that was so crazy to me, this lady would be so polite to me. Never told me she didn't like me because I was Black, because we had never had any interaction for her to say this woman is not qualified to treat my child. There was nothing that could make her refuse my services. She didn't know me. She just knew that I was a Black woman and that's not what she wanted for her son. Every interaction we had, she was pleasant. She loved the Lord. Jesus ruled and reigned over her life, but I wasn't good enough to treat her son. And that bothered me.
Yeah, you're being more bully's granddaughter today.
It's the truth though.
No, it is. I'm just saying.
That bothers me that we sit up and we say we love God, but we have such a strong dislike for somebody literally based on the way they look. I didn't choose my pigment. I didn't choose the melanin in my skin, but I'm glad I have it and I'm proud of it. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I helped your child, lady. I helped your child to be able to communicate effectively, despite what you thought about me when you looked at me and when you looked at the color of my skin. And that's not the first time I've had to encounter not even just a racist parent, but I had a therapist that I worked with. She was telling a story in the therapy room. She was talking, well, it wasn't even in a room. It was like in the big gym. She's telling a story in the big gym and she keeps when she's telling the story, she's really saying the word nigger, but she's saying it niger, and she continues to tell the story. And like everybody else was very uncomfortable. I didn't say anything to her. I'm at work. I'm working with this child. I moved the child to a different room. Like we leaving out of here because I don't need to go off. So I go to a different room, and one by one, therapists are coming in the room. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But this same woman is a proud believer. She professes Christ. She constantly posts about how much she loves the Lord and, oh, we're going to church today and all of that stuff. And I wrote colorblind as a response to all of those things. We can't say we love Christ and then treat people the way we do based on skin, based on what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm very much aware that people, you really can't be colorblind. You look at me, you see my color. I'm gonna tell you something. Me and Tamika used to always say, like, if people ignored us or something, like, as big as I am, I know you see me standing here. There is no way you missed me. And as dark as I am, I know you see me standing here. There's no way you missed me. You're being very disrespectful, and you're being disrespectful on purpose. Now, I will say that one of the things I do grapple with in the blog as well is that I don't believe it might be set up this way. I ain't been to heaven. If I get there before y'all and he let me report back, I'll let you know. But I don't believe heaven is separated by color. We're all going to be worshiping the same God. And I don't think he's going to separate us out. So I think that's one big issue as a body that we need to address. Like, I do go to a predominantly Black church because I feel connected. I feel like you get my struggle and you understand my struggle, and you can talk to me about God in a way that I understand. And not that a white pastor couldn't do it. My therapist is Caucasian and he is a former pastor. So yeah, because we believe Jesus, we believe the same core principles. I can sit and talk with you. But I wonder why there isn't more of that in the body of Christ. You talked a little bit about it earlier, Joe, while still maintaining my culture, while still maintaining.
Yeah. It's really difficult in a lot of different ways. In terms of what I've come to realize about different things, and it's especially hard up here in Washington, where I mean, like, there are a lot of people who are who have open churches. So a lot of these churches are huge into evangelism, YWAM programs, the whole nine, and they go into Africa and all these other places. So they are in constant contact with people, quote unquote, outside of their race. There's a lot of mixed churches and things that we've been looking at, but the one thing that's always weird to me, and it's just a person who champions representation in a earnest way. It don't be no black people on these boards. Like there be some black people on like the greeting staff. There be some black people that are working with foods and stuff. But in these combined churches where we're trying to profess this combined effort, I've yet to see a black person on the board. There's Asian people that, like I said, that lead the greeting teams and the life groups and do all this other stuff. There might be a black person that's in a life group, but it's a thing to where I wonder what it is your purpose is. Is your overall purpose the growing of the kingdom, or is it the kingdom that looks like you? Because if it's the growth of the kingdom, then you understand the parts that you can't do. Like, yeah, the Bible is universal, and it's not saying that it can't speak to who it needs to speak to, but our experiences, excuse me, are not universal in the sense, because it's just that just ain't it. If you do not know what it feels like to have explained to you what you need to be doing when a cop is behind you, or if you feel like if a cop pulls you over and they ain't got a reason that you can tell them that they don't have a reason to pull you over, and you're not afraid because you're talking about law, then we don't have the same experience.
Right.
And those parts of representation have to be understood. You got to understand that, it's hard for, especially, and I don't think a lot of these churches even think about it because they're professing a certain amount of love. It's hard for these black people to walk into these non-denominational or these all open churches or whatever. The music gets me every time. It's not that it's like it's bad music or something, but it don't, I be sitting there praying and I'm like, God, just help me to feel this. I got my list of songs. They ain't that big in terms of songs where I'm like, yeah, I fool with that. Because God help lead me to the words. Lead me to the words and the understanding, because the feeling that I'm used to is not here in that way. This feels just absent of that. And, that's one small part. But the other part is, like I said, the representation. I know you don't know my experience. I know you don't. I know you can give me a scripture or two, but sometimes I want to know you understand it as a person, the same way that I know Jesus understands my experience. Of anything, I know he gets my experience, especially being tried for something you didn't do.
Oh, yeah.
So the representation of who you're speaking and come as you are and speak to people at that level. Do you have somebody in that place? What are you actively doing that speaks to that lack of knowledge? You can scream Black Lives Matter and open the doors to everybody that you want to, but what are you doing that makes me feel like I too am home here?
Right. And I think, a lot of times when we go out searching for churches, we want to be somewhere that makes us feel good. And so, this podcast is not going to have all the answers. This is just a chance for me to unleash, unwind, child, and try to come to a happy medium. I don't have the problem. I don't have the answer necessarily to racism, but I think it is on us as Christians who say we love the Lord to really respect people of all colors, and to realize that as a body of Christ, we need to be more embracing and really think about what it means to be Christ-like. It really is not just sitting up in our separate churches, our churches that are divided by race every Sunday. It's really about caring about people as a whole. And I think that's something that we struggle to do really as a society.
Right.
You think about I think they call them the evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they say they love God.
But even in
So,
that, it's like the thing that's so crazy to me about how they profess loving the Lord and how they go out and do these things, right? You're even doing it in a segregated way. You're
right.
starting with like this thought process that when you go to these places, at least this is how it comes off to me. It could be wrong. Again, I only have one person that has actually uh, done YWAM and stuff like that, so I don't know all of the intricacies of what they go and do. But from
No, I
everything that,
wasn't talking about missionaries. I was just talking about the evangelical
well,
movement as a
I'm
whole.
saying
Go
like
ahead.
in the what I'm saying in that light, what I'm saying about what's different to me and the disconnect that I'm seeing constantly, whether it's them or other people, is there's a lot of things that they do for the community in the sense that it's charity driven, which means you'll do food drives, you do the backpacks and you do all of these different things. Like you go on the mission trips, and that to me is a part of it. But I don't see the building of the bridge to understanding a person's culture. There's more. Your culture is just wrong and it's demonic.
Right.
And there's a separation. Like, no, you need to just like. There's no like. It's almost saying to me that nothing about your culture is good. Like that's how it comes off to me. It could be wrong, could be, throwing whatever out there, but that's just how it comes off. Because at what point do you understand that there's a lot of their culture that is good? Like what they worship might not be, and how they worship might not be, but like there are other parts that would probably make them feel comfortable at home, feel invited, feel that God is moving through them too, that they can then use the communication that you've now given them to talk to other people. Because the
Right.
reason that it doesn't just start catching and spreading like wildfire in the way that you think that it should, and the reason why you keep having to do these mission trips a million times, you're not integrating to the culture. Like, yeah, you will eat what it is that they eat, and try to follow certain norms, but like, how are you empowering them with the culture that they exist in, the culture that they live in, to be themselves and serve God? And it doesn't
Right. I
mean,
think there's
yeah,
there's definitely a space for that, and then
yeah,
we definitely need more of that. And I think I want to challenge every believer, like, y'all see color. I want you to see my color. I don't want you to not see my color,
hmm,
but I also want you to respect who I am. Like you just said, respect my culture. Um, and realize that black doesn't mean bad.
yeah. Like,
Like it doesn't.
hip hop doesn't mean bad. A beat in music that ain't just like a couple rock riffs ain't bad. Like,
It's just not your thing. But I think that the great thing about belonging to Christ is that he died for everybody. He
yes,
died for the black, the white, the Asian, the Hispanic. He died for us all. And we're not all supposed to be the same. We're supposed to come with our unique gifts and talents. We talked a bit about it on the last podcast. Like, God gives us all different talents, and He
hmm,
wants us to use them all and express ourselves in the unique way that He made us. Like that's part of the beauty of belonging to the body of Christ, is that we all bring something different to the table. That's the joy of it for me, that I get to be around different people, but we all serve the same God.
yeah,
And I also think it's important for us to remember that how we treat each other, we're family.
hmm,
If you love Christ and I love Christ, we are family. We're brothers and sisters, and we need to treat each other well. Now, of course, family members do get into it because I got some family members. But anyway, the thing is, at the end of the day, we are all part of one body. And I really want us to be able to.
yeah. Bridge the gap. It's just there's a just bridge the actual understanding. Like like I said before, yes, the experiences that or the Bible is universal to everybody in terms of what it's trying to say or what it is saying in terms of the truth. The part that is not universal is how you deliver that, how it's received, how you act on that, because we're all parts of one body. But like my sister just said, we all have different actions and things that we need to do, and things that we have to go forth with that. If you do not take that into account, you can't equip what you don't know needs to be equipped.
True.
Like if I'm naturally built in my culture to have armor over my body, you putting another set of armor over me is just weighing me down. It don't make me feel like you understand. Like, oh no, I really needed them sandals that you wear. I really needed this part of what you do, because that further equips, that makes me stronger. That makes us stronger
As
as a
a body
body.
stronger. Yeah, we'll
So,
be able to reach more.
like, lean to the word always, but just try to understand the people. It says speak to people where they are. Like, that's something y'all keep saying, but like, you can't speak what you don't know. You can't try to keep you can't keep trying to translate what you know with a lack of perspective.
Am I gonna have to do a retraction right now? I guess I would. I did get a little bit heated when I was giving my racism story, but I'm not mad. It's just because that's honestly, if I walked around mad all day, y'all would know it. I'm not mad. It's just a reality for me, but I am passionate about making it known, and we have to do better as people who love God and who are called according to his purpose. Can't be out here disrespecting people. That's all I got, brother.
Okay. Well, if you would like more, there are blog posts every day at BibleStudyGirl.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at BibleStudyGirl, the number 2, on Instagram at _BibleStudyGirl, and on the Bible Study Girl Facebook page. Make sure you like and follow us there. Get us to 10,000 and you have a special surprise. If you listen to the last episode of the podcast, you'll know what that surprise is. I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to plug it back to that other podcast that you definitely don't want to miss. And remember, bro, it's not the color of my skin that preaches. It's not the gender of my body that preaches, but we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching.